Hello, I'm going to show you how to make the tic-tac-toe hat. I'm about 2/3 done, so I'll start it on another loom, and then when we get to the pattern part, we'll come back here and finish it off together. And you can just take a look at it, and we've got this nice brim, and it totally hides it so you don't have any loose loops. Keeps it from curling. And then we've got the E-wrap in 2 brim, which is the stitch right in here. And that stitch just really blends nicely with this stitch now, the tic-tac-toe, which is all up here. So there you go. So we're going to do this hat all in my stitches. So you're going to have to learn a few of my stitches, but still it's not really a hard hat. And the tic-tac-toe pattern's done in 4 rows, but they're 4 easy rows. This is done over 2 rows, and they're very easy rows. And this part's easy too. So let's get started. Okay, and I'm on the identical loom to the hat that we're working on over there, and it's a 3/4 inch 36 peg Cindywood loom. 2 of them in exactly the same color, same size, but it's a size I use a lot. And I think that month they had green pegs on sale or something. But anyway, we're going to make a slip knot and just put it here and tighten it, and then this part will go here. Oh, and the yarn is James C. Brett, and I'm using James C. Brett on the other one too, just in a different color, and I'll put the color on the front page so you'll be able to see what the color is. I'll look it up after. Okay, so we're just going to put our loom hook into the first peg and just scoop up a loop. Well, hopefully your loop scooping is going easier than mine. There we go. There's my loop. Just at a bit of an awkward angle here. Anyway, now that we have our loop, we're not going to need our loom hook anymore. We're going to do this all with our fingers, and we're going to do one of the chain cast-ons, and I like this one for hat brims, and it's going to give us that really nice cast-on and then beginning of the brim that you saw in the other hat. So the loop goes behind the next peg. We take the working yarn, slip it through, and just pull it and tighten it to make a loop. And back around to the next peg, put our working yarn in and just slowly tighten it. Well, you can quickly tighten it if you're good at tightening it with the right tension. I'm just going to do a few. And then usually at this point I check to make sure I've got the right tension, because I want to have loops that are easy to knit off, but I don't want them to be loose. I want to have nice tension. Let's say you wanted to tighten them, you could. You just go and put your hook in and pull them a little bit to tighten them. At this point, whoop. Of course, you shouldn't lose this yarn, but there. Anyway, they're all tightened up. So, but still loose enough to go over. And we just go behind the next peg, tighten, next peg, tighten. Very easy cast on. And that's all we do all the way around the loom. So I'm just going to meet you up somewhere in this area and show you how to finish off this cast on. Okay, so here we are, and then we're going to put this behind the last peg, and then to connect it we're just going to drop it over the white peg, tighten it up, and just knit it off to finish the cast on and to secure it. There we are. Now the next thing we're going to do, now that we've casted this on, is we're going to do 1 row of owl eye wrap. Okay, so this is my owl eye stitch. If you haven't seen it before, I'm going to go over it. So we just take the working yarn to start a round row and just knit it over, and then we're going to go behind peg 1, over peg 2, knit them off. Then wherever we are, we're on peg 1, so we just go behind and in front of peg 1, over peg 2, and just knit it off. There we go. We're at peg 1, we go in front, over peg 1 and 2, knit them off. We're at peg 1, front of 1 and 2, and knit them off. One peg 1 in front of peg 1 and 2, and knit it off. Okay, very easy stitch to do. Okay. That's all it is. This is the first stitch I ever created, so I've done a lot of this stitch. I find it very relaxing just to do this. And you're getting 2 wraps on every peg, so it's equivalent in length of 2 rows. So your knitting can go pretty fast. Okay, so I'm just going to meet you up here just before we start the next row to go over the next row. Okay, we're finishing off the row, so we're behind peg 1, going in front of 1 and 2. And then because we only have 1 wrap on this peg so far, we need to wrap it again, but we don't need to wrap that one because that one's going to have the first purl of our row of purl that we do next. So we're just going to hold it here and just knit it off. Oh, and the other thing about owl eye, be loose. You don't need to be tight at all. Okay, so now we do 1 row of purl. And this is how you do purl. You take your loom hook, you're picking up this yarn, this loop, and then you're putting the working yarn under and you're scooping up the working yarn into a loop, and then you're just going to put that, just going to put that loop back on the peg. Lift it all off and that loop goes on the peg. And again, just working yarn in, scooping up some yarn, and then just putting it over and tightening. And that's how you do a purl. And there's lots of videos on YouTube about doing a purl. If you haven't done purls, I'm just going to do a few here. Most people know how to do a purl that would be looking at this pattern. So we do the row of purl, and we get here and we do the last purl, and we start our owl eye row after that again, and the owl eye is the 1 wrap over there, and then that over the 2, just the same as I showed you in just before we did the purl. And then once we do the row of purl and then the row of owl eye, that's it. That's the whole thing for our cast on procedure. So go ahead, do the row of purl, and then do your row of owl eye, and I'll meet you up back here to start the brim. Okay, so I'm just finishing off this row of owl eye like that, and then we do 1 more row of purl. So I'll go over that whole sequence. We cast on with the chain stitch, then we did a row of purl, a row of owl eye, another row of purl, and we cast on, then we did a row of owl eye, then we did a row of purl, then we did a row of owl eye, and now we just do 1 more row of purl. So I'm going to say that again since I said it wrong that time. Okay, cast on, then we did a row of owl eye, a row of purl, a row of owl eye, and we're going to do 1 more row of purl. And then our brim will be done. You can already see that you know, it's coming up with that look that you saw in the other hat, and the cast on edge is looking really nice. It's really good because even if you have a few loose loops, this really will hide it, so you won't even see that. And this keeps hats from rolling really well as also. So I'm starting to use this brim when I'm doing these lacy hats all the time. Okay, so we do the row of purl, and then I will meet you here, and then we will start the pattern for the stitch. Okay, so we've done our purl row. So we've done our cast on, then we've done our row of purl, owl eye, purl, and I did it again. We did our row of cast on, then we did a row of owl eye, and then purl, and then owl eye, and then purl. Sometimes when you make a mistake and you say the wrong thing, that becomes your habit. It drives me crazy. Okay, so now we're going to start doing the brim. And the stitch that we used here, the row, had such problems with owl eye, purl, that's called the curvy wave stitch. That's what I named it because it just, it has kind of a curvy wave effect. And it looks like the chain cast on, like it really blends in with it really, really well. So it's become my favorite for these hat brims. Now the next stitch we're going to do is my E-wrap and 2 stitch. And all we're going to do is E-wrap 2 pegs together. So here's peg 1, here's peg 2. And then we're just going to E-wrap them together. And then peg 3 and 4, we go behind them. And then just wrap them together, and we keep it really loose. Next 2, next 2. Okay, and I'm going to put it really close so you can see it. We wrapped 1 and 2 together, 3 and 4 together, 5 and 6 together, 7 and 8 together. Now we're going to wrap 9 and 10. This yarn won't be green forever. It's going to run into another color, but it doesn't show up that good on the green loom, so I'm doing it very close so you can see. And we just keep E-wrapping 2 pegs, and we're keeping that really loose. And let's say you're not very loose. Well, you can adjust it. So if you're a tight knitter, you just go like this, and then you can go back and loosen them all up. And you really should do that before you knit off. Make sure they're nice and loose, because this can tighten up on you. And that's not what you want. You want it really, really loose. So loose that you feel like they could almost fall off. It is good. And we just E-wrap every 2 pegs. Now I'm on an even loom, so we're going to end up on the last peg, the 36th peg before the first peg. But if you were on an odd numbered loom, you're going to have 1 peg left when you wrap them all. So we're going to alternate pegs for our next row, and for us that means we're going to be wrapping these 2 pegs together. But if you have the odd loom, you're going to have the peg here that isn't wrapped, so your first 2 pegs to wrap will be that peg and peg 1. Okay, so we knit them all over, but I want to mark my next row because we're going to keep alternating. Every wrap in 2 row will be alternate from the row before. So it's really easy to get lost if you have to put your work down or somebody, disrupts you and you're not sure what you're doing. So I like to make sure I mark them. So I know I'm going to wrap these 2 pegs together because I see that 1 and 2 and 35 and 36 are wrapped together. So I'm just going to knit these off. And then I'm going to wrap the pegs that are supposed to be wrapped together. And then because I have a Cindywood loom, I can just wrap it around here. But let's say you didn't have any kind of a peg. Well, you could still knit over this peg. And then you'd know that these were the 2 together because you'd see that the working yarn's coming from that. And you'd see you have the 2 loops left there. So you'd know that you marked it for the next row. But I'm just going to do that. So then we just go and we knit them all over. Okay, and I'll just meet you up at the beginning because I don't think you need to see me knit over all these pegs. And there we are. Have them all knitted over. And now I've marked this. I know this is the first 2 that I wrapped, so I wrapped the next 2. and I E-wrap the next two together, and I E-wrap the next two together, next two after that, I guess I don't have to be holding the loom hook while I do this. And then here we are back at these two again. And then we're going to mark our next row, which is going to be these two again. So we're just going to, oh, these two again, 1 and 2. And that's easy to see that we had these, and these wrapped together, so we know we're going to be wrapping those two. Now our yarn is pretty far away, so if we bring it all the way up to wrap these two, we're going to have this big long string here. And I don't want to wrap these two, although those two could be wrapped together, because we're just going to start moving that way down the loom, and we don't want to do that. We want to stay here to make it easy when we start doing the body of the hat. So what we're going to do is move this here. Now you can just pick up the yarn and put this one behind and put the yarn back on to move it behind, but I'm going to show you another way to do it that's easy. Okay, so you just come over like you're like you're going to purl. Put your hook through the yarn, just like the cast on really, and pull up the loop, just like we did in the cast on. But instead of lifting everything off, we just flip this back on the peg, pull, and there's our working yarn behind. And that's what we wanted. So that's the way I prefer to do it, but you certainly can lift it up. And then we only, to wrap these two pegs now, we're only going behind one peg to wrap them, so it's going to be the same length as the rest of the yarns that are around the loom. Okay, and then we're just going to catch it and then go around and lift off. So that's the idea. You're going to keep going around the loom, alternating the E-wrap 2 peg rows until you get the length of brim you want. And I'm going for a brim that's 2 inches long. So I'm going to be going down to there. So you can go and make a longer brim if you like, or you can make a shorter brim if you'd like, but either way, I'll meet you up here when we're all done with our brim, and we're going to start the body of the hat in the tic-tac-toe stitch. So see you then. Well, I just popped back on to give you some tips too. So let's say you do get confused about what you're doing and what you wrapped. Well, you can tell what you wrapped because you're going to be able to see. All the ones that you wrap together are going to be like this with a lot of yarn up here, and the ones that you didn't wrap together are going to be like this. So it's pretty easy to see which ones you wrapped and which ones you didn't wrap, right? This you wrapped, she wrapped, this you didn't wrap. So that tells you. So I'm wrapping now, and the next one I wrap is going to be this one. And then these were wrapped, so the next one I wrap together is going to be these two. And there you go. So if you put down your work, you're going to be able to tell where you are just by looking at that. Okay, and here I am ending my last row because I'm at my 2 inches, and see, it's still easy for me to knit over, which means I kept it loose. So don't forget to keep it loose and to go back and loosen it up if you need to. And so we can take a look at it. And here we go. There's the stitch for the brim right there, right in here. There, I think we're at a better angle. So there, and now you can see it better. There's the stitch happening in there, the brim stitch, and here's our edge, our chain stitch. And now we're about to go into our pattern, so I'm going to go back to the other hat, and I'm going to keep this one and do another one of my hat patterns with it that I would like this start and this brim for. So there we go. So I'll just get the other one and meet you back here. Okay, so here we are back with this hat. So where we are is we've done our chain, we've done our brim here, and or the you know, this part that's I'm calling it part of the cast on, I guess, and it's the start of the brim, and then we did our brim stitch here. There it is. And then there's the tic-tac-toe stitch in here, which is the next one we're going to do. And it blends in really nice with this brim because we're using the wrap and stitch 2 as part of this. So that's why these stitches all go together so well. They're all related to each other. Okay, so it's a 4 sequence pattern. I'm going to go over it before we do it. And I ended up down here, which is going to happen a lot of times when you do the E-wrap in 2. So we want to get it behind that peg. So rather than lift the peg, I'm just going to do it like a purl, like I'm doing a purl, and then just pop it over and pull, and my yarn is behind the peg. Okay, so you ended at the end of your E-wrap in 2 rows for the brim. I'm already into the pattern, so I'm going to look to see what I did last, and I can see the last thing I did was E-wrap in 2, and I can see that I wrapped, put this close so you can see it, that I wrapped these 2 pegs together, those 2 pegs together, and those 2 pegs together. So I know my next row is going to be owl eye. So that is what your pattern is. It's all owl eye, and you wrap 2 pegs together. So we do 1 row of owl eye, that's the first row. Second row is E-wrap 2 pegs together, so they'll be these 2 pegs. We'll start with, and then every 2 pegs. Then it'll be another row of owl eye, and then another row of E-wrap 2 pegs together, but alternating. So it'll be these 2 that we start with wrapping together, or on the odd loom, your peg there, and this peg. And that's what it is, 4 row sequence. So we start by, and we only have to go behind the 1 peg. We just E-wrap, peg 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I'll meet you back there after we've E-wrapped and knitted off our row. Okay, so here I am back for part 2 of the tic-tac-toe hat, and I had to do it as 2 parts because my computer decided to have to restart, so I had to actually start the video again, and it doesn't do that with webcam, so I had to make it in 2 parts. So here we are with the hat. So we were going to go back to the hat, and so I'll again go through the hat. So we have this nice chain cast on here, and then we did our little sequence of the curvy wave stitch, so we'd have a really nice base for our brim. And then we have the brim stitch right in here, E-wrap in 2. And then this is where I've gone into the pattern, so that's what we need to do next. And this is the pattern, the tic-tac-toe pattern. Now, you actually already know all the stitches in it. And the reason all this work goes together so well is this is the E-wrap in 2 stitch. Here we have the owl eye with the purl, and this tic-tac-toe is made up of owl eye and the E-wrap in 2. And that's why they all kind of blend together so nicely in this hat. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a row of the owl eye, and I made sure that that's where I'd be starting, and you can tell the last row I did was an E-wrap and 2 because of the way it looks. I'm going to take a close-up. There you go. E-wrap and 2 looks like this. You can see the work there, and there's nothing there, and you can see that these were wrapped together, right? And you can see which ones are wrapped together and which ones aren't. Wrapped together, nothing. Wrapped together, nothing. Wrapped together. So that tells me, because our sequence is we do one owl eye for our row 1, row 2 is E-wrap 2 pegs together, row 3 is owl eye again, and row 4 is E-wrap 2 pegs together, alternating. So we know that our next row is going to be to do owl eye. So we're ready for row 1. So wherever you ended up when you were doing your E-wrap and 2 brim, you're going to come to do here. So if you ended up over there, you're going to put the yarn under so that you don't have to go as far. So you're going to put it under the next peg. Then you're going to come over, wrap in front of peg 1, and just knit it over and go right into owl eye. Okay, so we just go around the loom, doing our owl eye stitch nice and loose. And then I'll meet you up here. Okay, here I am just ending the owl eye row. And we want to wrap this one the second time, but not this one. Okay, so we're going to wrap pegs 1 and 2 for our first E-wrap 2 pegs. And we know that our third row will be owl eye again, and then we'll be wrapping those 2 pegs. So, wrapping pegs 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and we've done this before, so you know what we're doing, so I'll just meet you back when we're going to do our owl eye row. So I'll meet you back over here. Okay, so here we are, and I know that even if I'm into my owl eye row, you know, I know that this, when the yarn is here, that this is the start of row 2, because when we start row 3, we're over here and have to go under a peg to bring it over. So we do our owl eye row. So from here we just come over in front and do our owl eye row. So this is row 2. So we'll just go around doing our owl eye row. And then I will meet you up and we'll start our row 3. Okay, so since I'm wrapping these 2 pegs, I'm going to wrap my last wrap and not wrap over that one and just end there. And then we start with these 2 pegs and do our double wrap, double E-wrap. Okay, so now you basically know how to do it. You've got your row 1 and you're just going to do a row of owl eye. Your row 2 and you're just going to E-wrap 2 pegs starting with these 2. Row 3, a row of owl eye. And then row 4, another row of E-wrap and 2. And then you just repeat that pattern all through. Now if you're using the loom that has 41 pegs, or you have any odd loom, row 1, row 2 of your E-wrap and 2 will be these 2 pegs, and then you won't be able to wrap these 2, so you'll be wrapping your last peg with peg 1 for your row to stagger them. And so there's your 4 rows, and you're just going to do it till you get to within a ½ inch of the length that you want. Now I'm doing 9 inches, which is my favorite length to give me a slouchy hat because I've got a very small head. So 9 inches is usually an average lady's head, but do the length you want. You can have a normal hat out of it, or you, not just a beanie hat, normal hat, beanie hat, toque in Canada we call it, or you can have a slouchy hat. We also call that a toque in Canada, just by how long that you have your hat to be. So if I want it to be 9 inches, I'm going to stop at 8.5 because our bind off sequence is going to take 1/2 inch. So do your hat, get to the length you want, and then I'll meet you up and we will just bind off together. Okay, I'm at my 8.5 rows, so I'm going to start my next sequence, and I'm too far away again. I don't want to go, I want to keep this consistent, so I'm going to go down as if to purl, bring it up and flip it over and pull, and then I can just start on peg 1. Now what we're going to do is 4 rows of E-wrap, and just normal E-wrap, E-wrapping, E-wrapping, E-wrapping. So 4 rows of this. So very easy. We just E-wrap them and knit them off, and I'll meet you back here after your 4 rows. Okay, I've done my 4 rows of the E-wrap, so I'm ready to do the final sequence. We're going to do something before we actually pick up the things, but I'm just going to go ahead and wrap around 1.5 times and cut my yarn now, and then while I'm doing this I won't have to have the yarn bugging me. Just flip it over here. Okay, there we go. So now what we're going to do so that we can have a nicer, thinner crown is we're just going to take, there, where's the yarn? Okay, it's on this peg. Yeah, it's right there. So we're just going to take peg 1, the yarn from it, and pop it onto peg 2, or take the yarn from peg 3, pop it onto peg 4, and we're just going to do that all the way around the loom. But what I'm going to do as I go is just knit them over. Then I won't have to come back to do it later. So whenever we knit one over, we take the next one and we pop it onto the next peg and then just knit it over. Take the next one, pop it onto the next peg, and then just knit it over. Take the next one beside, pop it on, take it over, peg beside it, pop it on, take it over. So that's all we're going to do. And that's going to reduce it by half, which is a pretty significant amount. Especially with this, whoops, you can tell if you actually make a mistake and you're going to take this one to bring it over because it's too tight, it won't go. But because you've E-wrapped, these other ones move over really nice and easy. I find this is a really fast way to reduce, and then we only have half of the pegs on this loom to pick up at the end, which 36 peg loom, so only 18 pegs to pick up, and that's a pretty easy amount to draw string. And look at this, we're getting really close. We're almost going to be done our hat soon. And then the last one over. And there we are. And knit it off. Okay. Then all we're going to do is get a needle. So I'll just go get my needle. And I'm back with my needle. And I'm just going to thread my needle. There we go. And I'm just going to go pick up the loops. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one here. Oh, that one. Yeah, I'll start with this one here. I think that'll be fine. Yeah. And just pick up all the loops. This is sure pretty yarn. I'll make sure that I put the yarn on the front page so you can tell which color it is, but it's a Brett, James C. Brett, chunky. And these are really nice yarns to work with. It's about the same. It's about the same size as a Barcelona from Michaels, but it's a lot softer. It's a really, really nice yarn for making clothing with. Also has a nice little sheen to it. It's not super shiny, but it's just got a nice little sheen. Okay, well, here we go. We're almost there. So now we're going to pick up this one that had the yarn coming from it. And we're just going to go back and pick up the first one we picked up again. There, get in there. And now we can pop them all off. You can actually have been taking them off as you went. But there's only 18 pegs, so I decided to just leave them on because it's going to be fast enough to get them off. Okay, and then any stragglers, take them off. And there we go. Let's put the loom down here. And so then we're just going to drawstring it a little ways. And then I'm going to go inside the hat. So with the needle. There we go. Turn the hat inside out. And then we're just going to, I'm just going to trim this a bit so that it's not so hard to work with. There we go. And drawstring the hat the rest of the way. And there we are, all drawstrung. So then I'm just going to take it like this. I like to hold on to it in a way that it's going to be easy for me to sew. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then I'm just going to sew around in a circle. Close off the hat. I'm going to tie a knot. I'm going to go under a couple yarns or one piece of yarn, and I'm just going to tie a knot in it. There. I guess some of my yarn got stuck together, and then I'm just going to go around a couple more times. and put another knot in it. There we go. I'm checking that it's together good. There we go. And I'm just going to cut the yarn. You can weave it in if you like. I don't bother. I just leave it like this and turn it to the good side. And you can see that's what it looks like here. It's all done nice. And now we're going to stretch out the hat. So I get this out of the road and my scissors out of the road. And we'll just stretch our stitches and then set them. There. Oh, now you can really see the pattern on the hat. Look at that. That is just such a beautiful, beautiful pattern I came up with. It's just gorgeous. And then there's, you can see the one on the brim, and then you can see the nice chain stitch here, and how nice that looks, and how well the curvy wave stitch fits in with that. And there you go, there's your hat. Oh, and let's take a look at the brim we relaxed. So you can see that it's nice and relaxed. It's not a real bulky brim. It's nice to the touch here. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. And until we see you next time, bye.